what is known as the wisdom of Shlomo, the Chokhmah of Shlomo. Now, last year we spoke about the famous Mishpat of Shlomo, the famous story where Shlomo Hamelech advised that they should divide up the baby, etc., as a way of getting, when we discussed it. But then the editors of Sefer Melachim gave us an insight to actually what his Chokhmah was. Now, this doesn't appear in Divrei Yamim, it appears only in Sefer Melachim, as we said last time, because Sefer Melachim speaks about Shlomo as a person, as a human being, as a king, and not necessarily like in Divrei Yamim as the one who envisages the future of the Jewish people, which was in actual fact the idea of the Beis HaMikdash. And we're going to speak about that next time, about Shlomo HaMelech and the building of the Beis HaMikdash. But now we're going to speak about the definitions which the editors of Sefer Melachim, the prophets, they define the wisdom of Shlomo. And this takes place in 5 psukim. Okay, it's in front of you online, right at the beginning. Okay, let's start from the beginning. I hope everybody can see on the screen, or if they've got their pages in front of them. Okay, and it's written the following: Vayiten Elokim chokhmah lishlomo utvuna harbe ma'od. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Shlomo wisdom and understanding, great understanding, v'rochav lev. And now, rochav lev is a very difficult word to translate. The depth of his heart, the wisdom of his heart, the understanding of his heart. V'chol asher al sfat hayam. V'terev chokhmat Shlomo. And the wisdom of Shlomo was greater than chokhmat kol b'nei kedem, greater than all the people of the east, and mikol chokhmat Mitzrayim. Vayichkam mikol adam me'itan ha'ezrachi ve'iman b'chal kol v'dardai b'nei machol. Vayishmo b'chol hagoyim saviv. And his name became famous amongst all the nations. Not only was he very wise, he spoke in 3,000 parables, and his songs were 5, and the Aleph, we'll see what that word means. And he has the ability to understand the trees. He could understand the whispering of the trees. And he spoke to the animals and the birds, and understand their language, inverted commas. Everybody came to understand the wisdom of Shlomo. So therefore, in 6 sentences, the description of the wisdom of Shlomo. Now, in order to understand all the different synonyms which appear in this statement, because this will give us an understanding, once we understand the synonyms of the other books which he wrote. Because what else did he write? He wrote 3 other books. Shlomo HaMelech, we know, wrote 3 books. He wrote Mishlei, he wrote Kohelet, and he wrote Shir HaShirim. Now, each book has its own dimension, its own words, its own language. And therefore, if we want to understand these books and understand it, here, the Navi gives a sort of summary of who Shlomo was. So let's try to understand, and let's go live just at the first sentence, because that is the most important. Vayiten Elokim chokhmah lishlomo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives chokhmah, utvuna, an understanding. Now, what is the difference between chokhmah and tvuna? Okay, now, if we look at it, we understand. If we have to look at it the way the Malbim explains it, which was like a summary of all the different commentators. So let's look at the Malbim. It says the following: Vayiten Elokim chutz michokhmat ha'anaga. we're not talking about how Shlomo Hamelech used his wisdom to build up powers of government. We're not talking about that. Here we're talking about intrinsic wisdom. חוץ מחוכמת ההנהגה שדיבר עד הנה, נתן אלוקים חוכמה לשלמה ותבונה הרבה מאוד. וכבר ביארנו בפירוש ספר משלי, בפרטות ההבדל בין חוכמה ותבונה. What is wisdom? בחוכמה כלול כל חוכמת המידות, וכל עניינים שנופל עליהם טוב ורע. Wisdom speaks about the understanding of values, that which is good and bad, subjective knowledge, values. תבונה, כלולה החוכמה העיונית, שנופל עליהם שם אמת ושקר. Here the Malbim explains two concepts. The concepts of values, social sciences, and proper science, pure science. That which is either true or false, vis-a-vis good and bad. Chokhmah is man's ability to discern that which is good and that which is bad. Tvuna is man's ability to discern which is true and which is false. And there are two different sciences. Psychology, for instance, sociology, does not delve into true and false. It delves into good and bad. And then you have pure sciences, which speaks about true and false. Values often cannot be defined as necessarily as true and false, because they are subjective. They're subjective between periods of history. Let's give ourselves an example. Murdering can be a wrong thing to do, but not always is it false. Okay, the mitzvah of Mechias Hamelech all of a sudden turned around war as something which is good or bad. So Shlomo has to have the ability to discern between that is which is true and false, and also has the ability to understand what is good and bad. Chokhmah is the ability to discern values, and Tvuna is man's ability to discern between that which is true and false. Let's carry on. Next, V'rochav lev. Now here the Malbim explains V'rochav lev. What does it mean, Rochav lev? Ladat kol hapratim. He has the ability to understand all the details and in the intricacies, which are so vast, says that is what the first pasuk teaches us, which we're going to go into later in greater detail. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Shlomo intrinsic wisdom, which is chokhmah, values, understanding of values, and tvuna, and the ability to discern between true and false, and all rochav lev and the intricacies, which are so vast, like Sfatayam. Now, Baterev chokhmat Shlomo, and Shlomo's wisdom was greater than that of Bnei Kedem, who were experts in geometry, and Chochmat Mitzrayim, who were experts in pure sciences and witchcraft, as the Malbim says. Vaterev Chochmat Shlomo mi Chochmat Kol Bnei Kedem. Shayu Mechukamim, line number 24. B'Chochmat HaTchuna, astronomy, the Domehem. B'Chochmat Mitzrayim, and the wisdom of Mitzrayim, Shayu Chachmim B'Chochmat HaTeva, pure sciences. Umizgei Advarim, and understanding the nature of different elements. Ad she'ucholim la'afoch advarim b'latehem, that they knew how to do with tricks. Vayechkam mikol ha'adam she'em chachamim ha'gdolim v'chartumim, and he was the wisest person. Now, what does it mean here? Vayiten Elokim, God gives him. And here the Malbim brings the most unbelievable explanation of the Abrabanel. What does this mean? Vayen, line number 29. Vayen Barabeinu Yitzchak Abrabanel. Shebi'er be'orech ha'evdel sheben chokhmat Shlomo leyeter ha'chachamim. She'al shayta chokhmato b'derech hanes. Hisig hakol min hakodem el ha'mu'uchar b'yediya pitomit. Lo b'yediya hadragatit. Shelo tusag rak al yedei hasagat hachushim ba'amal v'yigiya וברוב זמן וריבוי הצעות, והיא עלולה לטעות. ואי אפשר לא שישיג שורשי הדברים בצורתם העצמיים, etc., etc. Says the Malbim in the name of the Abrabanel, the majority of people learn stage by stage, from the bottom to the top. They have the ability, and they need to do it by using all their facets, memory, depth of understanding, hard work, learning, etc., etc. And often, if you learn that way, people can make mistakes. The Malbim explains that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Shlomo not a natural way of wisdom. All of a sudden, everything came to him in one go. Yediya pitomit, all in one go. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Shlomo Hamelech all the knowledge in one go, and he has the ability to categorize everything. And that's what it means. Shayta chokhmato b'derech hanes. Hisig hakol min hakodem el ha'muchar. He doesn't build it up, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and now the Aleph joins to the Bet and the Gimel joins to the Dalet. You make up words the way we learn. We learn to read by stage. Shlomo HaMelech doesn't do that, but it comes all of a sudden. Everything comes in one go. Everything fits. To give us an example, perhaps the best example, is natural instinct. If we want to understand, let's say, how Mozart composed music, he didn't need to learn notes. He didn't need to work hard at it. It came like that. All of a sudden, it was a natural thing. Certain people have natural tendencies to understand everything, or to do in certain, it's a gift. Shlomo HaMelech doesn't have a gift just in music. He doesn't have the gift just in that, in a separate subject. He has a gift which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him in one go. Now we can't understand that, but the best example is music, because music comes to certain people as a gift. Art comes as a gift. Okay, there was the famous violinist Yehudi Menuhin, who at the age of 3 already, played in Carnegie Hall at the age of 5. Or you get chess players, geniuses at chess at the age of 4 or 5. That is a gift which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to people. Now Shlomo HaMelech gets that gift not in one sphere. He gets it in every single sphere. And people could not understand how he gets it in every sphere. So that means to say, what happens is with Shlomo Hamelech is that when he has the dream, which we learned about 2 shurim ago, and he asks from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give me wisdom to judge everybody, Shlomo Hamelech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't give Shlomo Hamelech just the ability to judge. He gives them in every single wisdom which exists. Now, that is the way, and that is meant by Yiten Elokim. It was a present from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The word Vayiten doesn't just mean he gives him as a gift. And this gift, Shlomo Hamelech uses it. Right. That is the introduction. The introduction to the wisdom of Shlomo. Okay, can we carry on? Anybody want to ask anything? Yes, Harold.
Can you hear me?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering, I mean, I don't want to read more into this than there is, but the way both description in Tanakh and in the Meforshim, that this is, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu invested in Shlomo a paradigm that we should strive to follow, meaning that we should not allow ourselves to limit the spheres in which we gain knowledge.
I'm going to speak about that just now, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to speak about it, okay? Now, it's a very good point, and now we're going to look at it in a very interesting way, okay? The Vilna Gaon, in a couple of places, as his way of looking at things, counts the number of times that the word Chokhmah is mentioned in these 6 sentences. Now let's count them. Vayiten Elokim Chokhmah, number 1. Vaterev Chokhmat Shlomo, number 2. Michokhmat Bnei Adam, 3. Vayichkam, number 4. And then, okay, it's written, Chokhmah Lishlomo, Chokhmah Shlomo, Vaterev Chokhmat Shlomo, Michokhmat Kol Bnei Kedem, Umikol Chokhmot. Here's already 1, 2, 3, 4. Vayichkam, 5. ויבואו מכל העמים לשמוע את חוכמת שלמה, אשר שמעו את חוכמתו. 7 times the word wisdom appears here. Correct? Let's count it again. ויתן אלוקים חוכמה לשלמה, ותרב חוכמה שלמה מחוכמת כל בני קדם מכל חוכמה. That's 4. 5 ויחכם. Pasuk Yud Daled, Chokhmat Shlomo, Chokhmato. 7 times. 7 times the Vilna Gaon noticed that the word Chokhmah is mentioned here, which obviously, says the Vilna Gaon, is not an accident. It's on purpose. Now, what does this come to teach us? Now, the Vilna Gaon's got his own explanation, okay, which we're not going into because that's more Kabbalah orientated. But this insight allows us to actual fact go back to the place where the concept of Chokhmah is developed. And that is in the Netziv. I'm using the insight of the Vilna Gaon to understand, to use it as an insight. Now, the Netziv, in many places, but especially in Parshat Baalotcha, notices that there are 7 candles in the menorah, in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? 7 days a week. Sheva Sfirot. We have 10 Sfirot, but Sfirat HaOmer speaks about the 7 Sfirot, which are attributes which human beings have. And that's why the world of nature, the time, is built around number 7. Okay? HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks about it. You have also time-wise 7 days a week, 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuot. You have 7 years Shemitah, 7 times 7 Yovel, etc., etc., etc. The world which we live in. And says the Netziv the following: Mishum shebatorah sheba'al peh nichlal sheva chochmot. In Torah sheba'al peh, in order to understand the Torah sheba'al peh, you have to understand at least 7 specific subjects. Shebeli yediyah b'chol chochmot, without knowledge of these things, אי אפשר לבוא לכמה עיקרי Torah. You can't understand Torah. כמו שיעורי כליים. How to understand the shiurim of different kilayim. How much you're not allowed to mix different seeds together. Uktzim, Kiddush HaChodesh. ועוד הרבה ענייני שיעורים. וכל החוכמות באו לשמש ולבאר אזהרות תורה שבכתב. ומי שיש לו עיניים, מוצא כל החוכמות מרומז בתורה שבכתב. So what does the Netziv say? There are 7 candles. The one in the middle represents Torah Sheba'al Peh. If I were to summarize it, it would say the following. We live in 3 dimensions: earth, heavens, and human beings. The science of the earth represents all the things of matter, how we define matter. Chemistry, physics, biology, zoology, etc., etc. We have human beings, ourselves, psychology, and how we intermix with people, social sciences. Then they have the world above us, astronomy, again, physics, history, etc., etc. Those are the 6 chokhmot, and they all have to intermingle with Torah Sheba'al Peh. Shlomo's 7 chokhmot, he understood, in inverted commas, chemistry, physics, biology, zoology, the world of animals, etc. He understood the world of human beings. He understood the world above us. And Shlomo Hamelech, and that is what the 7 chokhmot, which the Vilna Gaon notices about Shlomo. And what we go back to what Harold said, here we have this insights, how we have to understand as a paradigm of what a true Talmid Chacham is. Okay, if we're going to go jump down just now, right down to the bottom, line number Rambam, line 130. Rambam says the following: Ein ma'amidim b'Sanhedrin, ben gdola ben ktana, ela anashim chachamim unvonim, muflagim b'chokhmot HaTorah, understanding the chokhmot HaTorah, ba'al yidei ha'meruba, yodim ktsat mishar chokhmot, kgon, refuot, medicine, cheshbon, mathematics, tkufot, astronomy, mazalot, astrology, Itstagninus, magician, didarkei ma'onanim v'kosmim v'machshefim, v'havlei avodah zara. They need to know everything. Kayotzebo, kedei shiu yodim ladunotam, in order to know how to judge them. Which means to say the Torah demands from a Talmid Chacham and members of the Sanhedrin understanding of sciences, social sciences, medicine, astronomy, astrology, etc., psychology, sociology, whatever you want. Shlomo Hamelech is the prime example after Moshe Rabbeinu, who knows everything. At the time when Am Yisrael are at their peak, where they have everything, they have the Beis Hamikdash, they have a king, they have a Novi, they have a Sanhedrin, they have Kohanim, they have everything. And they have the king who actually is the heart of the nation. He represents, in actual fact, the heart of the nation. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives Shlomo HaMelech at the time when the Jews are at their peak, a king who is at his peak. And that's why we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls him also Shlomo, Shleimut, because of this absolute wisdom and power of understanding. And now let's just go one more stage before we go into it. Rochav lev kachol asher sfat hayam. What is this Rochav lev? Now, as the Malbim understood it, is understanding details. But if we look at it, there's an insight of the Alshich, who says an unbelievable statement. Because the last pasuk of the previous chapter was the following: Yehuda v'Yisrael rabim kachol asher al hayam. This was a peak where the Jewish people were like chol asher al hayam. They were a huge nation, like sand. Ochlim v'shotim usmeichim. It's a period where Am Yisrael eat, drink, and are happy. The eating and drinking is a physical eating, and it's also a spiritual eating. It's everything. That's how Shlomo reigns. That's his people. So says the Alshich, Ki ein safek, rochav tzarich rochav lev. You have to have this unbelievable, uncanny ability to give over chokhmah, wisdom, utvuna, and understanding, uvedat, lemarbeh misra, umashal mimshal rav ladat, ech yireh et hamon harav, how to understand these people, v'asher yotziem, v'asher yiviem, how to lead them, how to mentor them, how to impart in them wisdom. Now let's try to understand this unbelievable statement, which I think is so important. Man's ability to give over, to impart knowledge, to impart enthusiasm, is a function of his community, of his people. If the people are low, despondent, and they're tired, the amount of knowledge you can give them is minimal, because they have their day-to-day worries. The higher the people are, the more developed they are, the more you have to know how to impart this knowledge. Just think to yourselves, the problems which took place, you have the Vilna Gaon on the one side, but to how many people could he impart at the time of pogroms, in the time of suffering? And therefore think to yourself how the Baal Shem Tov had to work out a different way of creating enthusiasm amongst the Jewish people. And that is the difference between the Vilna Gaon who was there and the Baal Shem Tov. You needed both of them. But people could not understand the depths of the Vilna Gaon. Shlomo HaMelech was in a period where everything was shleimus. And therefore to him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to give the ability and the uncanny ability to give over everything. Everything. Because that's what the people needed. The people needed a king who was able, didn't need to fight. He didn't need to worry about physical security because everything was there. He needed to uplift them in spiritual and educational and values and knowledge. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this, and this was the Rochav Lev. Not only did he have the knowledge, but he also had the ability to impart this knowledge. He knew exactly who he's speaking to, because everyone had to receive from the king something. That is Rochav Lev, and that is the way the Alshich understands this magnificent statement of a Rochav Lev to Kachol, to the people who were like sand. There were so many of them. That is the period of Shlomo Hamelech. And that's what he had to deal with the Jewish people. Now, the next stage of the story is not only he has an impact on the Jews, he has an impact on the whole world. That's stage number 2. Therefore, the first pasuk speaks about pasuk number 5, pasuk number tet. V'rochav lev, to the people who were k'chol asher al sfat hayam. That's what this pasuk means. Now, what does he do? Not only, now comes the description of the wisdom of Shlomo. V'terev chochmat Shlomo michachmat b'nei kedem. Let's carry on now. B'nei kedem is the Radak. B'nei Mizrach hayu yiduim b'chochma. V'chein k'tiv kimalu mikedem v'divrei Chazal ma'ita chochmat b'nei kedem shayu yodim b'mazalot, etc., etc. And they knew all the languages, what the understanding of the birds. V'chein b'nei Mitzrayim hayu yodim b'chochma shebahem hayu nikraim chartumim. Natural sciences, biology, zoology, etc., etc. He understood everything. And then, Vayichkam Mikol, now comes the next pasuk, line number 60. Vayichkam Mikol Ha'adam. He became wiser than all Ha'adam, all humanity. But what's the stress of the word Ha'adam? We'll see in a minute. Meitan Ezrachi. V'chalkol v'dardar b'nei machol v'yishmo b'chol hagoyim. Says, now we'll see the Alshich. Hinei amru Chazal, echkam mikol ha'adam, greater than Adam Harishon. The wisest person who existed ever, until Shlomo and until Moshe, was Adam Harishon. He didn't have a grandfather. He didn't have a father. His father was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu impart in him? Ma'ita chokhmato. He'evir HaKadosh Baruch Hu kol beima chaya v'of lefanav. Amar lo mashmotan shel eilu. What are the names? Amar lo leze na'el likroto sus, v'leze na'el likroto chamor, u'leze shor, v'chein lekulam. He understood the nature of animals. Now, let me give you an example of this. Okay? Why is a dog called a kelev? Because it is kelev ha'adam. It is the most faithful animal. That's why a kelev is called a kelev, most faithful. Why is a cat called a chatul? Because, in their word, it covers all what its body extracts. It's like a chitul, like a nappy. It covers over what comes out. That's why we learn sni'ut from a chatul. An amal comes from the word amal, never stops working, etc., etc., etc. Every animal has its characteristic. And Shlomo Hamelech sees, Adam Harishon sees all these animals. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks Adam Harishon to give him names. Now, the minute you know an identity of an animal, you have the ability to connect up with him. The best example is the dogs. Okay, you can connect up to a dog in the most unbelievable way. Okay, why is a dog a bear called a bear? Because anybody who's looked at the Jungle Book will remember that the most jovial animal is the dove, the dovev, etc., etc., etc. And that's what appears in Shlomo Hamelech. Because the minute he identifies an animal, he can already communicate. Let's go one stage further. Amar lo, ma shimcha. Amar lo Adam, what is your name? Adam Arishon said, Adam. Shenivreti mi Adama. I've been created from the ground. But it's not only that I come from the Adama, because the same word Adama is also called Adameh. I have come from the ground, but I can come similar to you, HaKadosh Baruch. So Adam Arishon knows who he is, identity. And Shlomo Hamelech is greater than Adam Arishon. That's why the Pasuk says, Vayechkam Mikol HaAdam. He's greater than Adam Arishon because once he knows the identity of each animal, he has the ability to communicate. And he understands why trees are called this tree, etc., etc., etc. Me'etane Ezrachi, Zu Abraham. Veheiman, Ze Moshe. Shenema Bikol Beiti Ne'eman Bo. Michalkal, Ze Yosef. Shenema Bachalkel. Darda, Ze Dora Midbar, Shayu Kolom Mele'im Daya. Bnei Machol, Banim Shemachla Lehem Shechina. So Shlomo Hamelech becomes wiser than Adam Arishon. He becomes wiser than Avraham Avinu. He becomes wiser than Moshe Rabbeinu. He's greater in economics than Yosef. He's greater than the Dora Midbar. He's greater than everybody. Right. And what happens? Vayedaber, sorry about the next one. I'm going to jump to line number 84. Vayedaber. Took Yud Bet. Sorry, I made a mistake there. Now let's go to the next sentence. What does he do with all this knowledge? Took Yud Bet. Vayedaber 3,000 mashal. Vayishiro 5,000. Now, what does he do? He now speaks, and in actual fact, writes. Now, not everybody who has wisdom has the ability to speak. Not everybody who has the ability to speak can write. Not everybody has the ability to speak in different languages. Now, what do I mean by different languages? You have poetry, you have storytelling, you have lecturing, sciences, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, speech has multifacets. Okay? Now, being multifaceted, okay, you don't get it. In universities, you have the lecturers in social sciences, you have languages, you have pure sciences, etc., etc. Not everybody who's a great lecturer in any subject can write. Shlomo Hamelech is given everything. Wisdom, speech in its multifaceted way, and writing in its multifaceted way. Vayidaber 3,000 says the Malbim. Let's read it inside. Chutz min ha'chokhma kvua b'libo. Pasuk, line number 83. Diber gam ken divrei chokhma beruach hakodesh. Chibeh sfarim. Shem 3,000 mashal. Hu sefer mishlei. The book of Mishlei. Shenechlak lishlosha chalakim. Divided into 3 parts. Kivua b'perushi. Rote lomar 3 limudim. 3 parts. It means sfarim. 3,000 means 3 and teaching, because the word aleph means to teach. Vayishiro 5,000 va'elef. Hu sefer shir hashirim. שנחלק ל5 שירים. השיר האחרון מתחיל אחות לנו קטנה. The word Aleph means teach. Yalfuta in Aramaic is to learn. Therefore, Shlomo Hamelech teaches. And that's the word Aleph here. Aleph means to teach. He has the ability, and let's go back to the Pasuk. He has the ability to teach 3 types of different parables. He speaks in a parable way, mishlei, values, mishalim, parables, and he speaks poetry. Okay, let's take a look at this ability to speak. There are 4 terminologies of speech. He speaks to human beings in poetic or prose. And then Vayidaber al ha'etzim min ha'ez asher bilvanon. He speaks to zoology, plants, botany. Vayidaber al ha'behema, and he speaks to animals. His ability to relate to them. And he divides it up. Behema of remes the dagim. He understands, in inverted commas, how all of these creatures work, and he can identify them. That is, and that's what the 3 different, because they're 3. Okay, if we take it, there is domem, someach, chai, medaber. He understands the elements, that is the domem. He understands the tsomeach, that which grows. He understands the different creatures who live, chai, and he understands human beings. Okay, so that is the domem, the tsomeach, the chai, and the medaber. Shlomo Hamelech understands the domem, the sciences, the way the world is made up. He understands the tsomeach, and that is Vayidaber al ha'etzim. He understands the chai, that which lives, Beima of remes dagim. And he understands the medaber. You can't speak to a domem. You can't speak to something which doesn't live. Okay, but you can speak to a tree, because a tree grows. You can speak to an animal, because an animal grows. You can speak to a human being. And that is how the word Vayidaber means communication, understanding. Now, once all that happens, he has all this vast knowledge of the domem, of the tsomeach, of the chai, and the medaber. Then, vayavo mikol ha'amim lishmoa et chokhmat Shlomo, meit kol chachmei haaretz asher shamu et chokhmato. Once people have heard this uncanny ability, then everybody comes to him. That is how the Navi interprets, looks at Shlomo Hamelech. His knowledge, his understanding, his ability to understand everything, and from there the communication, understanding the domem, understanding the tsomeach, understanding the chai, understanding the medaber, and then everybody comes to him. That is the way the Navi portrays Shlomo. Right, please, questions until now, if anybody's got. Otherwise, we'll carry on. Anybody going to say anything? Okay, let's carry on. Now, we're going to look at 2 of his books. We're going to look at the introduction to the book of Mishlei and the end of Sefer Kohelet. And let's try to see what we've learned in this, how Shlomo understands things. But before that, we're going to learn a fascinating Rabbeinu B'chaya. Rabbeinu B'chaya, in his introduction to Sefer Bereshit, says the following: Gam Hamelech Shlomo, Also, Shlomo ידוע מפורסם, שהייתה חוכמתו רחבה מן הים, והכתוב העיד עליו, ויחכם מכל האדם. ואין ספק כי מתוך התורה למד הכל, וחכמי האמת העידו על מעלתו הגדולה. והוא שאמרה שלמה מלך על העליונים ועל התחתונים. שלמה המלך ruled on the world below and the world above. שנאמר וישב שלמה על כיסא השם. Now we already spoke about this pasuk, but we're going to understand in a different way now. Shlomo HaMelech sits on the throne of Hashem. ויש לך יתעורר בכאן. מדוע קרא הכתוב כיסא שלמה כיסא השם? How is it possible that the throne of Shlomo sits on the כיסא השם? ואיך יכול הכתוב להמשיל כיסא חול לכיסא הקודש? How can you compare the two? One is the throne of a human being, and one is the throne of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the following. אבל העניין כי כיסא שלמה הוא דוגמה. The throne of Shlomo is an example. What is it? ומפני זה היה ראוי. Then he goes into Kabbalah, but that we're not going to speak about. מפני זה היה ראוי להיקרא כיסא שלמה כיסא השם. ומאין ידע. Where does Shlomo HaMelech know? תכסיסי רם ומתנשא, וידורי השררה עצומה והמעלה הנפלאה. How does Shlomo HaMelech know all about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? עד שעשה בדוגמתו כיסא שלא נעשה כן לכל הממלכות. כל זה ידע, he knew, והשיג בחוכמת התורה. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him this uncanny insight to understand the Torah, and from the Torah, as the Netziv says, everything evolved. That means Shlomo HaMelech looks in the Pesukim of the Torah, and he has the insights in every single subject, in every single parameter of knowledge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lets him look at the words of the Torah, and as he said before, this insight created for him everything. When it says Bereshis bara Elokim, Shlomo HaMelech knew exactly how Bereshis bara Elokim. When it says HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the animals, Shlomo HaMelech understood from the Torah, and he understood the nature of each animal, etc. Ume'ayin tabolo, and from where do we know? Hamalchut yom olech ba'elyonim, ela mitoch chokhmat haTorah shemil elyonim. Umatzinu shemitoch chokhmato hagdola shenad min haTorah חיבר 3 ספרים, והם משלי שיר השירים בקהלת, והוא אמרו ויחכם מכל אדם מאיתן האזרחי, וכתיב וידבר 3,000 משל, וכתיב וידבר על העצים, תראו לבם. הכתובים האלה מבארים שפע חוכמה. Right? The uncanny ability. How does he learn? Now let's go back to the Abra Benel. Shlomo HaMelech did not learn Torah the way we do. We have to learn how to read without nikudot. We have to read what the sentences say, etc., etc. And it takes years and years of understanding. Mishnah, Gemara, Sifrei Kabbalah, Sifrei Machshava. Shlomo HaMelech sees it, and everything clicks in one go. That is the matana. He looks. It doesn't mean to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him without any books in front of him. He had one book in front of him. Chamisha Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yoshua. That's what he had in front of him. And the minute this had in front of him, he read the word Bereshis. He understood all the secrets of the word Bereshis. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him as a gift. But the text, the only text which he had in front of him, was the Chokhmah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu written in the Torah. So therefore, the way Rabbi, and that is the Kisei Hashem, Shlomo HaMelech sits on the Kisei Hashem because HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him everything. That's his throne. Now, from then onwards, written, line number 135, Mishlei Shlomo ben David. Now I've written the translations. Melech Israel. The Proverbs of Shlomo, the son of David, king of Israel. Ladat, Chokhmah umusar. To understand, wisdom, umusar. Discipline, ethics. להבין אמרי בינה, comprehend. לקחת מוסר השכל, to understand this discipline, צדק ומשפט ומישרים. Take this knowledge and be able to work out righteousness, justice, and equity. That's exactly what the Rochav Lev of Shlomo. How to give over all these things. He has this knowledge and he takes it, he knows it, he understands it, and he takes it. And he gives it over. He mentors. He gives. What does he do? Lapet laptaim orma. He has this ability even to the simple people to explain to them. Lenar, and to a young boy. Dat umazima, knowledge and discretion. Yishma, chacham, a wise person will hear. V'yotef lekach, v'navon, and an understanding man, chbulot, yikne, he will understand how to counsel people. Lahavin, mashal, umelitza, language. Divrei chachamim v'chidotah. So let's see Shlomo Hamelech. What does he understand now? Shlomo Hamelech understands that every human being has to have chokhmah u'musar. He has to understand. He takes from this musar the tzedek, mishpat, mesharim. This is the life story of Shlomo, guys. This is what he does. He learns, he understands, he gives over. He then gives to the different people this knowledge. He mentors them. He has this ability to speak to the simpleton. He has this ability to speak to young children. He has the ability to give over to a wise guy knowledge and people who understand things, etc., etc. And correct language. And finally, all this is for one purpose. One purpose. Yirat Hashem Reshit Dat Chokhmah. The objective is of Shlomo HaMelech to give over Yirat Hashem, which is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. Umusar evilim bazu, and despise the discipline of the fools. Sorry. That is Shlomo HaMelech's battle. Shlomo HaMelech's battle is in actual fact to impart knowledge and to give over the correct midah, the correct amount of knowledge to every single human being, and to take away this people who make fun of the Torah and make fun of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then Kohelet ends off the following. V'yoter shaya Kohelet chacham, more than Shlomo HaMelech was wise. Od limed dat et ha'am. He taught the people. Izen, he listened. V'chiker, tiken mishalim arbe. Bikesh Kohelet lמצוא divrei chefet. V'katuv yoshe divrei emet. He wanted to give over the words of delight and to write it down. Divrei, why? Because divrei chachamim korbanot. The words of the wise are like oaths, or kamasmerot netuim, and like nails, baalei asufot. V'yoter mehem abani, and now comes the final stage. V'yoter mehem abani, hizaher asot sfarim harbe en ketz. Write things down. Shlomo HaMelech realized that it's not everything is oral. It has to be recorded. It has to be written down. It has to be everlasting. It has to be no end to it. Because Shlomo HaMelech realizes that the most important thing is that things which are great have to be recorded and written down. That people should always be able to look at them. And that's what he says. And when studying much is awareness of the flesh, Sof davar hakol nishma Elokim yirah mitzvotav shemor, ki ze kol ha'adam. Goes back to Adam Arishon. Look what we said. Who was the first person? Adam. And we go back, Sof davar, the end of matter, everything is fearing God. Ki ze kol ha'adam, because we are all part of this Adam Arishon. Never had a father and never had a grandfather and was created. Kosof, we've all been imparted by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the souls of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is Shlomo Hamelech. That is his gift to the world. Okay? Because he realizes that the most important thing to do is not just have wisdom. The most important thing is to impart this wisdom into his generation and future generations by writing it, by recording, and everything. That is the gift which Shlomo Hamelech did, and he was the most prolific writer. If we think to ourselves, it's not like David Hamelech, which were prayers. Shlomo Hamelech doesn't speak about tefillot, even though certain tilim are his. He speaks about language, shir hashirim. He speaks about parables. He speaks about wisdom. He speaks about everything. That, Rabbi Sai, is a summary of Shlomo Hamelech. Okay, any questions? Any statements? Any?
Well, it seems you wonder why Tanakh, I don't want to say created, but it just seems so far removed from anything that we know as reality, that there could be somebody who is so infused with almost, with instant knowledge of everything, that almost like, what's the point? In other words, it is so, he's the only one in history who was like this. And how do we relate to this?
Okay, I'll give you one answer. Okay. Your answer is you have an ambition in life. It gives you a goal. It gives you a goal. Okay. The goal is to try and copy Shlomo Hamelech as much as you can. That is the goal. Okay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives certain people in every generation who you want to copy. Because if you don't have those people, then you're going to be in trouble because you won't know your goals, Harold. Okay, and that is why. Okay, and the thing is that in a generation which is so great, you have to have great people, and that's what it is, and that's what we learn. Okay, and I think it affects every single one of us as teachers, as mentors, as rabbonim, that there are goals. Okay, and without those goals, you will fall flat on your floor because you've got no ambition in life. And ambition is the most important thing. And correct, it was a miraculous, but it exists. Okay, but if you take it in different spheres, in different disciplines. Okay, I gave you the example of Mozart before. You go to great artists, you go to great scientists, and Einstein. You go to great rabbonim like Reb Chaim of Brisk or Rav Soloveitchik or people like that. You've got goals. Correct. There was one person HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave everybody, because everybody, you needed somebody who was so great because the nation was so great. But they're goals. And without those goals, you're finished. Yes, Mitch.
And this is all very nice and important, but it seems to me at the end, Shlomo lost it. And
we'll get there. 1 minute, we'll get there. Don't worry.
Okay, I was saying, you have to explain how that could possibly have happened.
We'll get there. Don't worry. Okay, we'll get there. Emet Hashem. Okay, but that's a few shurim later on. Okay. Okay. Good Shabbos, everybody. Keep well.